Melissa Forziat. I'm a keynote speaker and the host of this Halt and Catch Fire rewatch podcast. Now, when I speak, my topic is something that I call Take the Doughnut, which for me is another way to say Carpe Diem. It's all about going after the things that you wanted in life. And what I wanted to do this year was rewatch the show Halt and Catch Fire, and this time talk about it with other people. And here you are. And I'm very excited today to get into the season finale of season two, episode 10, and also your feedback, which I'll be pulling from all different kinds of feedback that we've received up through this point, even including season 1. So today we're going to talk about season 2, episode 10, Heaven is a Place. The air date was August 2nd, 2015. It was directed by Phil Abraham and written by Christopher Cantwell and Christopher C. Rogers, our creators. The description for this one is Joe must come to terms with his recent betrayal and figure out a way to get back into the game. Gordon makes a choice in order to save his marriage with Donna, and Cameron discovers a new playing field for the future of Mutiny. This one is just one of those episodes where we're going to be pulling from every episode we've seen so far to understand what happened in this one and why people feel the way that they feel. Before I get into it, if you missed it, we had, oh my goodness, what a fun interview I did recently. I mean, first of all, I'm coming off of the ATX Festival. I'm still actually at the ATX Festival, so I had to pre-record this one. And, I'll be coming home soon. And I'm just, what a blast to be able to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of Halt and Catch Fire, the first season. But this all started with the episode that I dropped on Thursday. I thought, if you're going to do an interview around like a convention or a festival atmosphere, why not talk to the guys we always see when it comes to expos or festivals or conventions in this series? And that, my friends, was Lenny Abraham and Barrick Hardley, who played the Protonics printers brothers at the Condex episode in episode 109. Oh my goodness. I was so excited to have that conversation. We even did a little reunion with a special guest. So if you didn't get a chance to see that one, go back and see it. And again, I'm pre-recording all of this, so I'm trying to keep it straight in my head, what I've told you, what you've seen already. So bear with me if you already know more than what I'm sharing here. But I am so happy about all the content I've been able to share recently. And now we're going to get into the finale of this season. There's a ton to talk about. So let's go into the scene-by-scene description, scene-by-scene breakdown, that is. So first of all, we're going to start on a highway. Camera's going to take a nice long look at the back wheel of a car as there's other cars behind this car. It's Joe's car, turns out. Joe is behind the wheel. He's looking very stern. Things have really come apart in his world in these last couple of episodes. And we're going to get a close-up on his wedding ring. The number of close-ups we see of Joe's left hand in this episode, I mean, count them up. Here's number 1. And as we're looking at that, we are going to hear Jesse's voice as Jesse is talking to Jacob. So I like the fact that they overlapped this. It just sort of puts things into a context that they might not have if this hadn't been overlapped. So Jesse is talking to Jacob in Jacob's office. Jacob, we're seeing the back of Jacob's head. He's looking out the window. And Jesse is saying, West Group headquarters network offline for over 80 hours. New York's mainframe offline for 2 days. Hundreds of databases and disk drives are wiped. Corporate banking has been frozen until our accounts data can be recovered. Legal is drowning in calls from vendors and third parties. So basically, he hasn't exactly listed the damages from a number standpoint, but he is definitely sharing the context for us of how drastic the repercussions have been from that shareholders meeting where the virus was unleashed on West Group, on WestNet. So Jacob just says, just give me the damn numbers. And like, we've had enough backstory. Like, tell me the damage. Then we're going to see Jesse, who's kind of loath to give the numbers, but he says West Group stock price is already down 8%, and we're looking at an incurred cost of several million. Jacob, still looking at him from behind his head, he nods his head, and then he turns around to face Jesse, and he says, and Joe? Jesse says, well, the board recognizes that he is to blame, but they don't feel it prudent to pursue a criminal investigation. And Jacob's just sort of going to chuckle a little bit, and he's like, okay, so they chose a scapegoat. Which we don't have that context here, but when we see magazine covers later on, it sort of seems like Jacob's the scapegoat that we're talking about here. So, you know, this is how it's all ended up for Jacob. You know, he, I think, got a little too cocky to put Joe on stage. I think he thought, based on the reasons we talked about in the last episode, that Joe would never tank his career. He listed all these reasons. You'll tank your relationship with Sarah, you'll tank your career. There are going to be people in this shareholders meeting room who are going to be important to your future. And Jacob just sort of thought, Joe has no choice. Like if Joe comes to the meeting, if Joe gets on stage, Joe has no choice but to follow the company line. And it turns out he hadn't really sat with the fact that Joe will burn everything behind him when he leaves every single time if he wants to. He knows about that happening previously, but he hasn't really absorbed it to realize it could happen to him. And so he got cocky and he let Joe be the keynote speaker, and this happened. And his company is really hurting, and so is he. So now we're going to see a secretary showing Joe into an empty corporate legal boardroom. And so this is where Joe was driving to when he was in the car. The secretary says, oh, they'll be with you shortly. Joe's like, my wife, she's not here yet. I'd like to speak with her before. The secretary says, I'll show her in when she arrives. The secretary probably already knows that Sarah has already been in the office, but she's not getting paid enough to have that conversation. So she's just going to hightail it out of there. The secretary closes the door behind her, leaves Joe alone, and he is going to look at a stack of magazines that are on a table, a side table. The one on top is a business trade magazine, and the headline is Wheeler Out at West Group. Okay, so Jacob was the scapegoat. The magazines under that, the one at the bottom, there's a headline that says Glory Days and a picture of Bruce Springsteen. And then there's one above that in the middle that says The Fall of Steve Jobs, behind the scenes at Apple Computers. We have a fun comment about that later. So this is the news, and the news isn't good. So Joe just looks at all this. He shakes his head. For those of you who sort of think of Joe as a Steve Jobs-esque character, the idea of him looking at something that says The Fall of Steve Jobs is like, Jacob's out, but kind of so are you. So, okay, now we're going to go to what's happening at Mutiny. Totally different situation right now for Mutiny. The environment, the Mutiny environment feels peaceful and happy. People are laughing, people are chuckling. It just feels peaceful. We haven't felt that in a really long time. But Mutiny has sort of extricated itself from West Group, from Joe, from Gordon. It's just operating on its own steam right now, and people seem to be pretty excited about what's happening there, but like a calm excitement. So we're going to see a close-up of a screen. It's the Mutiny interface, and this is an upgrade. We've got color graphics. We've got avatars of people. We're starting with an avatar of Lev. He's in front of the actual Mutiny house. We're seeing it all. And he has options. He can go to the mall. He can go to news, arrows either way. So Cameron says, okay, so this is Lev right here. Donna's like, Lev, you look so cool online. Lev says, yeah, like in real life. And he laughs. And then Bodhi's graphic is his avatar is gonna walk up to Lev's avatar. And Cam's like, okay. Donna says, Bodhi, why do you have a skull head? He just He just has a skull head. That's what he chose. And Bodhi says, because it's wicked and awesome. And he laughs. There's a playful energy happening right now at Mutiny. They're free of so many things and they're getting paid. Cam says, yeah, okay, so each visualization is totally customizable. The more time you spend online, the more options become available to you. Everybody's seeming very pleased with themselves. Bodhi has actually just typed in a message that we see come up on screen, and it says, just say no to drugs, which is the type of message in commercials from the 80s anyway, but also, I mean, in the previous episode, in the party episode, Joe, well, 2 episodes ago, Joe was on drugs. So I don't know if that's meant to be a comment about that as well, but he writes in that message. And Cam says, okay, so walk here to Mutiny Mall, here to news and updates. And she's sort of showing Donna around. And a lot of thought and work has been put into this. I'm trying to figure, so I guess, like, how did all this pan out? So WestNet stole Mutiny. They stole Community. But now, it must have been enough time that Mutiny was able to rebuild Community and the mall feature. So I guess what we're seeing here is that there's been a time jump without saying that there's a time jump. That's my understanding. It's not that it doesn't seem like WestNet just like all of a sudden had the rights to all this, because the legal stuff wouldn't have happened that fast. So I'm guessing that this is just a matter of Mutiny took back what was already theirs, and they probably didn't have any help from WestNet to get there, but they were able to recreate and improve on their work. Correct me if I'm wrong on all of that. Okay, so Donna says, is the town hall ready for my admin talk tomorrow? So she's getting prepared to speak to the users. Cam says, yeah, you just have to figure out what you want to look like online. So Donna gets to pick her avatar. And then Dave comes up. Dave, one of our coders who has been upgraded, he says, hey, so I'm taking over accounting. I just want to make sure I have the correct info for our new network partner. Is it Telnet or Telenet with an E? Donna's like, well, it's Telenet with an E. They're based out of DC, and the guy we work with over there is Doug or Warren or I don't know. And then she looks at Karen. She's like, how great is it that we don't even know his name? So basically, they've got a Joe and West Group Energy replacement. It is Telenet. And we're going to see Yo-Yo come in. He's got his Bite My Bits shirt, which I like very much. Hey, no, not to bury the lead, because the lead probably wasn't his Bite My Bits shirt. Yo-Yo's back. It's been enough time. Mutiny is on its feet, and it's not as risky, and Yo-Yo is willing to come back. So he's back. And so Yo-Yo comes in. He's like, Houston is officially up. Cam's asking how many new subscribers. He says, with the promotion, I've had 29 new signups with a new 713 number in the last 2 hours. So I guess in real time, that would mean a new area code was made for the Houston area. So they did a new promotion to that area to get more people. Sounds like Yo-Yo was given the authority, was put in charge of that piece. Donna says, conquering the world, one area code at a time. They all laugh. They're all so smiley and happy right now. And then they're gonna, some of them are gonna lean back into Lev's monitor to continue seeing this demo. Dave, however, is still standing there. He has not moved. There's more that he wants to say. Cam's like, yes. What else is there? And he says, well, if it's okay with you, I was wondering if I can move to Tom's desk. The smile drains out of Cam's face. Every time the name Tom comes up in this episode, her whole face just drains. And Donna looks at Cam. Everybody just kind of knows to be cautious, except maybe Dave, who wants Tom's actual desk. Dave's like, no, but you see, it has 2 drawers and mine only has 1. I was just thinking, Dave, you bonehead, you want to do accounting, you're going to need more than 1 drawer. And he pauses. He sees how all of this is landing, poor Dave. And he's like, but they don't necessarily have to be Tom's drawers. He's going to backpedal as much as he needs to now. Kim says, oh, fine, whatever. She starts to walk away. Donna's like, hey, have you heard from him? Kim says, nope. Switches topic. How is Gordon? Donna says, good, he's good. I'm going to go pick him up from his meeting in a couple of minutes. And then we're going to hear a ringing sound. Dave says, got it. It's probably Telenet. They like to fax. They're big on faxing. You're going to hear the screech of a modem. He's like, don't worry, I got it. Fax machines were still very much in use during this time, as far as I know, as far as I'm aware. But because this company, because it's like a tech company, it sounds very antiquated to them already. So that was sort of interesting to have that idea happening here. Going back a second here, when Cam says, how's Gordon? And Donna says, I'm going to pick him up from a meeting in a minute. Not to spoil anything for people who aren't familiar with the future of the show, but I don't believe in this moment that Cam has an awareness of Gordon's illness. So how much does she know here? Probably Donna's sort of talked about Gordon needing support or help, or maybe something about him being sick, but maybe it's something related to a mental illness. Maybe I'm not exactly sure. It's not said specifically exactly how much Cam knows here, but I don't believe that she knows the extent of Gordon's illness. But she knows enough that she's not like spitting at the floor when she hears his name, right? She's not getting all heated when anybody brings up Gordon's name. So there's that. I guess there's a little bit of sympathy that's come about here. Maybe part of that came from the fact that she was just able to weaponize the tool that he used against her to take down Westnet. So there might be that. I don't know. We'll have to see how this unfolds. From here, we're going to go back to that boardroom that Joe is in. He's looking alone out the window, and a door opens and closes in the room. He's not even looking at the person who comes in. He just closes his eyes, I think bracing himself for it to be Sarah, but then he turns and sees it's not. And he looks a bit pained, and he's like, I was hoping to speak to Sarah before signing. The lawyer says, yeah, she came in this morning. Sorry, somebody should have told you. Basically just throwing the secretary under the bus. The secretary is not being paid enough to have that conversation with Joe. I mean, it's probably what she's supposed to do, but just don't with Joe. So he's going to look down. He's going to look at this dissolution of marriage paperwork. He gets to the last page. Sarah's signature is there. And he closes his eyes. He exhales. He looks pained, but he signs it. He's going to drop the pen. And back to a place where more happiness is. We're going to go back to the Mutiny House, where Cam is walking and looking down at a piece of paper. I noticed a lot of shirts today. I tried to stretch myself and really notice things that I normally can't even spot. So she is wearing a shirt that says, I survived the Texas heat wave of 1980. Or it says, I survived the Texas heat wave, and it has 1980 on it. So I guess that was a big deal, that they'd sell shirts for a thing like that. That's amazing. So Cam is looking at this piece of paper, and she's just sort of like guffaws, and she says, you got to be kidding me, Donna, look at this. She shows Donna the paper. They're in the hallway. Donna's like, well, we're doing so well, they're charging us more. Okay, so now we have context for what's on that paper. Cam's like, great, here we go again. Once again, with a not $3, but $5 sort of approach. We don't know what the actual numbers are here, but Donna says, no, it's because the pie is getting bigger. Look, we're doing well. It's part of the process. This is how it works. Cam is indignant at this point. She's like, no, this is about being beholden to somebody else. It doesn't matter if it's Telenet or West Group or Doug or Warren or Joe McMillan or the Pope. As long as we are in some other dipshit's network, this is going to keep happening. Donna's nodding. She gets it. Cam is just the feeling of freedom that she has. She doesn't want it to be ripped away from her over and over and over again. So she wants to take some of these sort of chaotic elements out of the business structure. Cam says, we're never going to be in the driver's seat. Donna says, well, the only places that have networkable hardware are the big companies. Cam's like, I know. Donna says, places that can afford the metal. This is time sharing. This is the name of the game. You know, look, we'll counter with Telenet. We'll do the dance. Donna's very much like, this is how it works. Cam's energy throughout a lot of this episode in these conversations with Donna is like, let's change how it works, because it's not like she wants to problem solve her way to a better option. Donna's like, this is the option. She doesn't want to spend the energy fighting it. I think she'd rather find that time to use for other things. I don't know what those other things necessarily are at this moment, but we can definitely see that these two have very different business styles, even through this one conversation. Cam takes the paper back. She says, nope, screw the dance. I want to change the music. Mom's like, I know, I gotta go. She says it quietly. So we're gonna go from here to a support group meeting. I didn't catch what this support group is actually. So we do know, and this was something that somebody had asked me previously in a comment, does Gordon take any medication? And I couldn't remember seeing Gordon take medication, which he may, at some point in this series, but we are hearing here multiple times, did you take your medication? So he's been given some sort of medication, and based on the way a couple of lines read, I have a feeling it's more like an anti-anxiety pill. I think it's something related to his mental state more so than to his brain disease diagnosis. So that's my take on this. The support group, what is it for? Is it for a mental illness? Is it for anxiety? Is it for something else? So the leader of this group says, okay, let's wrap up the day by looking at our stress journals. We're going to see some of the people in the room. He says, last session, I asked you all to note your stress, big and small, conflicts, frustrations, fears, rate them 1 to 5, 5 being the most stressful. First, I'd like to go quickly around the room and have everybody say their final stress tally out loud. A lot of people are grabbing journals, leaning forward. Gordon is the person in the room who's leaned back in his chair, kind of disengaged from it. The leader calls out some people's names and they start saying their stress tallies. They're giving numbers like 39, 24, 57. The leader looks to one person and says, why so much stress this week, Diane? She's the one who said 57. She says, well, the bus route changed, so I've been driving the girls to school myself. I had to go by Kmart. The Kmart by our house isn't open, so now I have to go all the way to One Carrollton. Gordon's hearing all this and he's yawning as big as he can, not covering his mouth. He's like basically rolling his eyes in this room. He's not only disengaged, he's downright insulting to all of the people in this group. This would be your worst nightmare to have this person in your group, I think, if you're the leader. I imagine that this leader has dealt with that before. Gordon doesn't want to be there. It's very clear. And looks like everybody else in the room does. So leader goes to Gordon. He says, all right, Gordon, what's your tally? And Gordon says 0.28. Clearly a much smaller number than everybody else. Leader says, oh, that's pretty low. Must have been a good week for you. Gordon says, yeah, nothing really to report. I'm taking my medication. The kids are heading back to school. Leader says, what registered the 0.28 for you? Gordon says, well, I couldn't find my glasses. And he turns up one corner of his mouth because he's just being cheeky now. And the leader, who we're going to come to know as Brendan in a second, he says, anything else come to mind? Maybe something more serious, something you might have failed to capture in your journal. Gordon's like, nope. He even gives him a little wink. This guy, just seeing the glasses thing here, Brendan, and he smiles. He has a small smile back at Brendan. Brendan says, okay, well, that's what we got. That's what we'll workshop. How about you role play your stress for us? And he's going to push Gordon on this. Gordon leans forward. He says, sure. He starts storytelling. He makes it big. He says, I woke up and I thought, where are my glasses? And then I found them and I said, here they are. he's doing this in front of the whole room. People must just be rolling their eyes at him. Brendan says, no, let's have you get on your feet. Let's try this again. I want you to act this out in the center of the group. Gordon's gonna slap his knees. He stands up, he sighs. We're gonna see Donna starting to approach from outside. She doesn't come into the room. She's approaching the window to watch. And Gordon doesn't know that she's there. So Brendan says, why don't you take off your glasses? I'll hold them for you. And, Gordon gives him the glasses. And this, Brendan says, okay, it's the morning. You woke up, can't find your glasses, go. Gordon closes his eyes and he puts his hands out like he's properly blind. And it's so big and it's so taking the piss out of this whole meeting. And he says, oh no, I can't find my glasses. He opens his eyes. Where are they? I'm never going to be able to see again. He puts his head back and his hands down and he goes, oh no, I'm blind. Donna's watching this whole thing from outside the room. Everybody here can see Gordon doesn't want to be here. Brennan says, okay, instead of captioning it, why don't you just tell us what you're feeling? Gordon says, well, right now I feel like I'm wasting my time. And Brendan says, well, how do you feel about losing your glasses? He's doing his best, this Brendan figure. Gordon folds his hand like the good little student. He's like, well, I'm mad that I can't find them. Brendan says, and he says, and frustrated and worried. And Brendan leans in. He's like, why are you worried? And then it looks for a second like they're having a breakthrough. Gordon says, well, because it's been a few minutes and I'm worried that I lost them. And I don't know. I can't remember where they are. Is it just me forgetting or is this something more? And now we're starting to see the camera going to other people's faces, kind of nodding like it's coming. He's doing it. Brendan says, oh, okay, does it scare you that your illness might progress? Maybe Brendan thinks that there's a little breakthrough happening, but there's not. Gordon says, no. He says it defiantly. And he walks over to Brendan and he grabs his glasses from Brendan. He says, because they were on the damn kitchen counter. And he walks back and Donna just sort of hides in the window so she can't be seen. And that's where Gordon is right now. He's in this place where he's meant to be getting help after, frankly, a really scary situation in the stairwell at the garage. A situation that rightly scared him. Donna gets him from the hospital and he's like, yeah, I know I need help. And then here's what he's doing with it. I think, there's a lot of resistance to, yes, he knows for a second he knew he needed it, but now there's the reality of being in a situation where he needs help. And I don't know that he wants that right now. We're going to go back to Joe. Joe is driving, still wearing his wedding ring because we're getting another close-up shot of that. We're going to see his hand on the wheel. Specifically, we're mostly seeing his ring, the hand with the ring on it, on the wheel. But then he lifts his hand a little bit. He lifts his finger a little bit, looks at his hand, and he looks pained. And then he gets really focused, like maybe I can make this pain go away. And he starts driving faster. The speedometer is ticking up and he closes his eyes and lets his hands lift off of the wheel. And they're just hovering over. He's not touching the wheel. His eyes are closed. He's wincing a little bit with closed eyes, like bracing for impact. And then we're going to get a horn honk from somebody else on the road. And he opens his eyes and he puts his hands back on the wheel and he just sighs. I mean, he basically had a death wish there. He was tempting fate. It was like, it's all been destroyed. Either destroy me or don't. Horribly irresponsible. That was clearly the point. But he also put other people at risk, which I'm not a fan of here. But I don't know. I don't necessarily know that he comes away from that with like a realization. I think he comes away from that like, I don't know that he won't do something like that again. Like I don't feel like the honking of the horn scared him into some other mental state. I think that he is in a really bad spot right now. And, he wasn't successful in killing himself or severely damaging himself with this scenario, but could he do it in the future? Maybe. I think there's a risk there. We're going to go to the Clark kitchen, where we're about to see just how much tension there actually is in that household because we're watching the kids. So Joni and Haley are sitting at the kitchen table eating waffles. Donna, I guess, has been trying to take on more responsibilities at home, but she's out of the groove a little bit. Gordon had taken them over for a while, and now she has to sort of figure out how things work again. So Donna's looking through the cabinets. She's like, where's the peanut butter? I mean, she doesn't even know where the peanut butter is. So Haley is going to point to a cabinet. She's like, it's right up there. Donna picks a cabinet. She's like, this one? Haley's like, yeah. And then Joni complains, my ego's still cold in the middle. Haley just looks over at Joni. I think we're seeing they're different ages here and how they're both handling their own personal stresses. Haley is being the good little girl, pointing out the peanut butter cabinet. And Joni's like, this waffle is crap. She's fighting the system. She doesn't like where things are going. She probably doesn't really understand where things are going right now. Donna says, well, it's drowning in syrup, so maybe that makes up for it. Joni tosses the syrup covered waffle across the room like a frisbee. The syrup getting everywhere. What destruction. Like that's like the most that's the worst thing that she could think to do. And it is really, it's going to be a lot of work to clean that up. Donna says, excuse me. She's so angry. She's like, what kind of behavior is that? Joni sounds very assured here. She says, why can't daddy make breakfast? You suck at this. Whoa. It's the kind of thing, it's not respectful to Donna, but I understand where this is coming from. And I'm very impressed that she is so assured, as somebody who myself probably would have been more the Haley type, to be sitting back and being really quiet and being like, that's the cabinet with the peanut butter. Joni is able to voice something here in a way that sounds confident. She wants some sort of resolution or answers. And I think that's an interesting trait for her to have, and a good trait, I think, ultimately, if she can figure out how to use it. In this situation, it's really annoying for Donna. But when she puts it that way, Donna is initially angry. She's like, Joni Marie. But then she gets quieter and she sits down. She says, we all need to work together, okay? Your dad got a little upset. And Haley says, like California? These two girls nailed this scene. Joni lunges at her. She's still seated, but Joni lunges across the table at her while still seated and says, shut up, stupid. They are holding the secret of however much they know about California. They know that Gordon fought with his brother. They know they stayed in a hotel. I don't know if they know why, but Gordon and his brother were talking really, really loudly. So they probably do, because the girls were both awake. I don't know if they know what it means, but they know a lot more than maybe they should. So Donna's like, hey, no name calling. She looks to Haley. She says, what happened in California? Haley looks like she's in trouble. She just sits there. She gets really quiet. She says nothing. Donna says, Joni. She looks at Joni because Joni is the one who will speak. And Joni does, but she is very reluctant about it. Not the assured Joni we saw a moment ago. She says, Daddy and Uncle Henry got into a yelling fight and the three of us had to sleep in a crummy motel. I was like, why didn't you tell me any of this? Joni sounds upset. She sounds like immediate buyer's remorse, like confessor's remorse from having shared the truth, but not being so sure she should have. She says, because then you and Daddy would fight like him and Uncle Henry. Donna says, what was the fight about? Joni just gets up and leaves. That's too much. It makes me think Joni does know exactly what that fight was about, in as much of a way as a kid can understand. She's not going there. She's already said too much, she feels. So she leaves Jo, and then Donna calls after her, Joni. Gordon comes in. He's like, is everything okay? Haley is just sitting there quiet and sullen and not engaging with anybody, staring at her waffle, not making eye contact with anyone. Donna can see that. She's like, what is happening here? Donna keeps Gordon okay. She says, yeah, Joni didn't like her breakfast. Gordon says, we're out of orange juice. He's shaking the container. And then he's like, and there's no coffee. He's just come in to complain about things. He's in a mood. Donna whispers, Donna's kind of trying to placate Gordon. But her attention is really on her youngest daughter right now, who is hurting at the kitchen table. She sees Haley just so like sort of drawn in on herself, and she just whispers to her, it's okay, sweetheart. And that scene ends, but we're going to see the repercussions of all this later. This scene really put in context for me, like that the secrets that are in this house have been weighing down the house. Gordon and Donna are good at pretending like that's like what's behind us in previous episodes is behind us, but it's very much alive in Haley and Joni, and all of this stuff still lingering. So we are now going to see Joe. He's standing in a suit between two paintings. He's like basically right in the middle between the blue swirl and the red swirl painting, which we have seen before from a character that is so darn frustrating. And he's back. We're at that office where we found Bondum last time, the guy who didn't really think that a couple women, I mean, are you going to have any biological imperatives that might impact your ability to run mutiny? Joe's here to talk with that guy. So he is, we're looking at the back of his head between the two paintings. We're pushing in a bit, then we see his face. The phone rings. There's a receptionist there. And as the camera rotates around to the front of his face, we see he's very stern. I mean, he's had a day as well. The receptionist says, I'll let him know. And she says, Mr. McMillan, they're ready. So Joe goes into his meeting room. And to me, this is like the meeting room that you sit people in to insult them. It's not like a boardroom. It's not even a room with a table. It's a room right off of the lobby with the glass door so you can see the lobby. It's like you're almost in the office, but you're not quite there yet. You're just like all these people who are outside. And there's a sofa and a couple armchairs, and there are three guys plus Joe. And this is all from Stokes Capital. And so we are going to see Bondum start. He says, yeah, we had mutiny in here, but frankly, I was on the fence about them from the get-go, and I heard they're doing pretty well recently. I'll chalk that up to dumb luck. This guy, I was on the fence about them from the get-go. Reed, I wasn't going to give them capital because they were women. This guy, yeah. So lucky that they're doing okay. Yep. Joe says, mutiny certainly isn't the answer to anything, but I will say this burgeoning online sector is the place to be in technology right now. Joe has no idea what happened with mutiny. I don't even know if he knew that mutiny had met with this guy. But he's trying not to be affiliated with them. He's turning over a new leaf. And so he's like, but they have the right idea with the online space. And that is what we are here to talk about. Bonham says, do you have something in mind? Joe says, mutiny is fine if I live in Dallas, but what if I want to access information in Toronto, San Francisco, Tokyo? So he's thinking bigger. I think, and maybe that's partially inspired by the way Jesse was talking in a previous episode, or maybe he was always prepared to think that big. Bondum just sort of eyes the other guys. Joe continues, what if I live in rural Nebraska where there's no service? What do I do then? Bondum says, okay, so you want to do the first online service in Omaha? The guy next to him is smirking. They're not really taking this meeting seriously. I knew it from where the meeting room they chose for him, but they're not even talking to him like they're taking this seriously. Joe says, Omaha is just a place on the map. I'm trying to make maps irrelevant. The way he says this, I like the way Lee Pace hit that line, because he says, I'm trying to make maps irrelevant. And he says it in a way that's like, these guys will never understand my vision. He's not talking down to them, but he is realizing like these guys are never going to understand my vision. It's like a disappointment. He says this service allows customers to dial in from one location. Bondum just inhales impatiently and dial out from banks in a completely different city. Joe now picks up on Bondum's lack of interest and he closes. He says something like this sidesteps long distance fees. Bondum's like, I'm going to stop you right there. Now, you brought West Group into tech recently, right? WestNet, all that? Joe says, well, I transitioned West Group into time sharing and helps them realize a dormant passive income stream. So this is the correct correction. He did not bring WestNet about. That was an idea that was done without him. He just brought time sharing to WestNet, to West Group. Bondum says, so why'd you torch it? Joe frowns a little. Bondum hit a nerve here. Joe says, I didn't. Bondum says, yeah, that's not what I've heard. Here's the honest truth. We don't have a dime for you. We took this meeting out of morbid curiosity. Joe looks mildly annoyed, but like through depression, he's like moving slowly. It's like Bondum's in a haze, but he still can be annoyed through that haze. Bondum says, now the press story is that Wheeler botched the tech move. But I know some guys on the inside over there who told me the real story. And what I want to know is why. How many different real stories are there actually when you think about it? Joe, one eyebrow flinches a little bit. Very subtle micro movement he made there. It was lovely. And Bondum says, but also how? Some destructive program, right? He's looking at the other guys. Was it a virus or something? Joe kind of shifts in his chair. He says, I looked into you, what you did at Cardiff, immolating 100 computers out by Lake Texoma. Holy shit. He laughs. I am blown away. And then he says it with admiration. He says, I've never met a legitimate psychopath before. Joe is stern, but he's almost tearing up. He stands up, he leaves. I feel like I'm looking at 12-year-old Joe or younger Joe who was getting bullied by people at school. This feels like one of the guys who was one of those bullies or a bully for somebody at some point when he was younger. And he's doing it with Joe right now. Joe's just going to stand up and leave. So now we're going to go back to the mutiny office. The mutiny screen is up. There's a bunch of people in like a meeting room, like a town hall room. The Donna avatar is up on stage. I took a second to read. There was a chat at the top with people, with what people had written in the room. Donna had posed, anyone have questions? Somebody wrote, will you go out with me? And she wrote back, sorry, I'm married. Hey, if this thing with Gordon doesn't work out, Donna's got options. Anyway, the town hall is probably not producing a whole lot of legitimate questions. So Kim comes in, she puts a paper on Donna's desk and she's like, we should buy this. She's smiling. She says the IBM 3033 mainframe, it's a refurbished job. It needs a little love, but then we'd own it. She's very pleased with this. She's like, no more network partners. She came to Donna not just with I don't want to have to rely on other people anymore. She actually came to her with a hard answer to how to get there. Donna says, Cameron, you can't really do this though, sort of response. Cam says, you know where I found this? Community, patting Donna on the back, sort of. She says, I went into the tech talk room. I wrote the specs we need. And suddenly I had 100 mutiny field agents on it. They found this thing in 2 days. Nicely done, Cam. Way to harness your community, literally. By the way, it seems like it's fun hat day at Mutiny. There's the guy who always wears the helmet. He's still wearing the helmet, but then we get Tugboat. He's wearing a little hat. Like I don't know, it's just fun hat day, I guess. Probably not official. It's just what's happening. Donna says, this machine is 10 years old. It uses tape drives. Cam says, well, Donna says the control unit's missing and it's in Daly City, California. And this would be all of our liquid cash plus most of our projected income for the next year. And that's before shipping. And then if we could get it on a truck to bring it here, where would we put it? And Donna's all about the problems. If Cam wants this to happen, she's going to have to come up with all the solutions because Donna can't see it. Kim says, yes, there are challenges. She's smiling. She's agreeing. She's being professional. She's like, but we need to start moving. Donna says, if you want to drive a submarine, you got to join the Navy. She smiles like, this is life. This is how it works. I didn't make the rules. I'm just living in them. She says, yeah, you might have to salute somebody every once in a while, but it's better than buying a rickety old diesel boat that sinks you to the bottom of the ocean. She hands the paper back. She checks for Cam's reaction to see how that landed. She's kind of hoping that closes the case. She says, this is a reach even for us. And Cam has learned a thing or two in her time of dealing with Donna. And she smiles and she accepts it. And she says, okay. And we know that Cam's going to keep thinking about this and she's going to find a new angle, but she knows she does not have the angle right now. So just fighting Donna on this without new information isn't going to get her anywhere. So she's learned something along the way. So she's going to leave the room and we hear a pre-lap start for the song Looking Back Texas, back to the basics of love. And we're then going to go to the Clark garage door opening. And I really enjoy the vibe of this whole sequence. So we're hearing this song and the door is opening. You know, we're hearing lyrics like, the only two things in life that make it worth living is guitars that tune good and firm feeling women. Gordon comes out of the garage, or just like to the edge of the garage with a coffee mug in his hand. And, you know, we're hearing more lyrics like, I don't need my name in marquee lights. The camera is shooting from down low behind him, so he looks like he's tall, like he's the master of his universe. I got my song and I got you with me tonight. And now we're shooting, the camera's shooting from behind him out, like the way you might see somebody shoot a rock musician, like into the crowd. Except it's all just a drawing trees for him. Then the lyrics say, maybe it's time we got back. He looks out at his dominion, his neighbor's house. To the basics of love. He puts down his mug, he creates some space on the table, and he grabs there's a stack of a 6502 Machine Code for Humans book and the Sonaris disc. We're here in Let's Go to Looking Back Texas with Waylon and Willie and the boys. He takes all that, he pushes it to the side. The Successful Life We're Living. He goes and he reaches up on a top shelf to grab some train sets, a few boxes of them. Got us feuding like Hatfields and McCoys. He's going to put them on the table. Between Hank Williams' Pain songs and Newberry's train songs. And we're looking at all the model trains and Blue Eyes crying in the rain. And that's Joe's cue. I don't know, something about it, I just kind of enjoyed the way the lyrics played. It was just very, I don't know, all the camera angles, it really worked for me. Joe's going to approach. He says, hey, he walks up in his suit and he says, I rang the doorbell, but then I heard the music, but I see you're busy. Gordon looks surprised to see him. It's been a minute since he's seen Joe. And it seems like he's heard tell about some things that happened with Joe. So this is kind of a novelty to see Joe walk up. And Gordon says, no, I'm just trying out the steam-powered CPU. Look, I know what this looks like. They parked the Looney Bird out back with his kitty toys, but I'll have you know that these aren't just toys. This is rail transport modeling. Joe nods, yes. I got this back when I was at Cardiff. I just never got around to it. He's going to stop the record. He's like, what's going on? He walks over to Joe, who's still standing outside the garage. So just again, the reference to Looney Bird, Joe, I don't know that Joe would have any reason to know anything about like Gordon's mental health. So I guess that support group is a mental health related support group. Is it an anxiety group, or is it something that is connected with another diagnosis? I don't think that anybody's given him another diagnosis. I don't remember him ever getting another diagnosis. But, you know, it seems like there's medication and the support group for that to get him emotionally on track. So Joe says, I just came by to give you something. He reaches into his pocket and he hands Gordon something, which I don't know what it is. So Gordon says, what is this, a prom? Thanks, Gordon. Hey, I looked that up for those of you who are not tech savvy like me. It's a programmable read-only memory. It's a form of digital memory where the contents can be changed once after the manufacture of the device. The data is then permanent and cannot be changed. Okay, so Joe says it's from the one we reverse engineered. So, hey, remember all the way back in the pilot when we were in this garage together and we worked on this very chip that can never be changed again? This is it. This is the memory. So the literal memory. So Joe says it's the one we reversed engineered. Gordon's like, you saved this? It's kind of a sentimental thing. And Joe says, yeah, I've always kept it as a kind of private touchstone. It's nice to have when times are tough. It sounds stupid, but it always kept me going. Gordon says very softly, trying to give it back, maybe you should hold on to it. It's very ominous. Joe shows up and gives him like an important thing to him. It feels like Joe's saying goodbye to Gordon in that moment. Joe is just looking at the garage. He's like, boy, it seems like yesterday, doesn't it? Gordon says, yeah, no, it seems like forever ago. And he said, look, I heard about what happened at West Group, and if there's anything I can do to help, maybe, you know, there's a way I can help you prepare the mainframe. After I blew up Mutiny, I tooled around with the Sonaris code, tried to see if there was any way to reverse it. Maybe that would help. Joe just smiles to end the conversation. It's like, I'm going to smile and that will finish this conversation. He says, you look good. I'm glad. And he gives an absurdly big smile and walks away. And Gordon just looks confused. He's like, what happened? What about you and Sarah? Joe continues walking away and he looks back and he says, take care of yourself, Gordon, and just leaves Gordon standing there confused. This feels desperate, right? And given that we just came off of a scene where Joe was driving with his eyes closed and without holding the wheel, it feels like a goodbye even to us. Okay, we're going to go back to the hallway at Mutiny. Cam is looking at some papers. We see Yo-Yo working with Lev and Dave. Yo-Yo says there's a company off LBJ that's letting go of their 3081. Cam's like, that sounds promising for $1 million. So she didn't, she's trying to find something closer to them, not in, to try to address some of Donna's concerns. She's trying. But wrong place, wrong time. A bunch of coders come in from the back door, and they're reminiscing about something that happened in the last day. So one of them is like, I knew he was crazy. So Rendon walks back up to this girl. So there's 3 of them. They're telling the story. And Cam looks up at them and she's listening, and they don't know that she's listening. And they're continuing on, and they say, one of them says, look, you can unplug the jukebox again if you want to. Lev looks up at Cam. He knows, she's hearing this Tom Rendon story. You can unplug the jukebox again if you want to, but I know deep down inside you like Tom Petty, because everyone in this bar, no, in America, likes Tom Petty, and it's only a matter of time before you realize that. Tom made a big speech to some woman at the bar. Bodie laughs and he says, Tom Rendon and the Heartbreakers, and they all laugh and they walk to another room. I think that would be the living room. And Lev looks at Cam and he's like, you should just call him. And she just looks down. Everybody is treading very carefully. Well, the people in the know are treading carefully with Cam around the Tom issue. All right, so now we're going to see Gordon reading the Business Trade magazine in bed. And this, my friends, is one heck of a heavy scene. This is quite the two-hander, sort of like it's a long scene. It almost functions like a play, and a lot of really important stuff happens here. So Donna's going to come in yawning. Gordon's reading the magazine. She says, the girls are down. I'm ready for this day to be over. She sits on the foot of the bed. She's doing the Mr. Rogers thing, pulling off her shoes and talking. She says, Telenet wants to have a conference call to discuss the rate hike. It never ends. Gordon says, have you read this? The magazine. Donna looks at Gordon through the mirror. So there's something standing between them being able to talk directly right now. He says upwards of 6 million in damage, and they actually refer to Sonaris by name. Donna says, did you take your medication? Gordon says, yes, Nurse Ratchet. So this is another reason to point to, like, there's something here for anxiety or another mental health issue. You don't make a One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest reference lightly. So there's that. He says West Group's cover story is that some network assessment software went awry. Donna starts taking down her updo. He says, I always hoped one of my inventions would go down in history. I just never knew it was going to be a goddamn computer virus. She sits in front of him on his side of the bed. She's like, let's talk about something else, huh? She's sort of stroking his arms. She wants something here that's not talking about West Group. Gordon just sort of sighs. He's like, Joe stopped by today. She just stopped. She's like, I didn't mean Joe. Gordon says, he looked like hell. She gets up. This is going nowhere. And he says, I don't think he's doing well. Donna, now we see her in the mirror. She's grabbing, pajamas for bed. She says, well, I'm sorry to hear that. She slams her drawer. Like, I did not want to talk about Joe. Both because I think it seems like she was trying to seduce him, but also because she doesn't want to talk about Joe. Like, there's so much unsaid about that. And, at the end of the day, they just ousted him from the company. And now Gordon's like, he's not doing great. Okay. Where's Gordon's sympathy? So Gordon says, he stopped by to give me the prom chip from the IBM we reverse engineered. Through the mirror in another room, we can see her changing into her pajamas. I mean, there's all this distance between them now, even in sort of a similar space. Gordon says, he saved it. And I was like, yeah. Gordon says, I've never seen him like this. I feel like he could do something desperate. It's all because of what Cam did to him. Donna's not answering. He says, doesn't that disgust you? I mean, even just a little bit. Whoa. Whose side is Gordon on? Donna might be wondering. So Donna says, I don't think it's a good idea for you to get so worked up like this. You know what the doctor said. It's like, just stop, because this is as far as we go before this becomes a fight. Gordon says, she destroyed his entire life. And for what? Because he tried to help her? Donna says, well, it sounds like you're just going with Joe's version of events then. She walks in briskly, looking directly at him, and goes to the closet. Gordon says, because I think he's telling the truth. So pausing here for a second, this is Joe's version of events. Joe is the victim in Joe's situation. Like, in Joe's mind, he went in with the best of intentions. He was trying to help Mutiny and offered them a deal, and it didn't work out. And Jacob made him try to hike the rate, and then there was the benchmarks and all of that. But then they made a really good offer for the business. And in the end, it wasn't the right thing. And Joe even went out of his way to tell Cam, don't take this deal. They'll pull the games. And then it was Jacob and Jesse that took over Mutiny with Westnat. Like, Joe's like, from Cam's standpoint, I've only done right. But that is Joe's version of events. And if you're Mutiny in this situation, Joe just kept coming at you over and over and over. And then when it wasn't Joe anymore, it was Jacob and it was Jesse. And those people were brought in by Joe. And so Donna's like, whose side are you on with this? Because what, you're feeling bad for Joe? Meanwhile, we just took our company back. So it's an interesting fight with like two very solid positions here. And so Donna says, annoyed, do you remember what kind of partner he is? When you were in business with him last year, all the things that you accused him of, Gordon's like, this is different. She says, why? Why is it different now? Now, suddenly, when I experience the exact same thing you do, Joe is a nice guy. Why is he the victim? She's getting heated now. Gordon says, Joe might not be the most trustworthy person in the world, but what Cameron did to him is the most. Donna says, we did it. Gordon is stunned. She says, giving him the virus, it was our idea, Cameron's and mine. She's going to take full ownership, well, a full half ownership of this. Now Gordon's pissed. He's like, you knew he was leaving West Group. I told you that. I was like, yeah. Gordon says, why would he have anything to do with Westnut? He already had one foot in California. Donna's energy is lifting and lifting and lifting. And she's like, the truth is, it doesn't matter. He's toxic. You know that as well as I do. Last month, when you were so worried that someone was stealing your idea, well, that was actually happening to me. It wasn't just in my head. Whoa, what a line there. When you were so worried somebody was trying to steal your company, which wasn't a thing that was actually happening, or it didn't, or it failed instantly. But it sent Gordon in an absolute tailspin. And the fact that he can't see why Donna would have made the choice that she made, coming from the same exact concern, is like, Gordon, you're in your own head here, man. But she says it wasn't just in my head, and that feels like a dig at his mental health, and that might not be the best approach for her. So they're really, I mean, this is like the bumpiest conversation we've seen between them in a long time. Gordon is incredulous. He's like, who are you? It's like, I don't even know you anymore. I mean, this entire year, Donna says, who am I? You kept a serious illness from me for nearly 2 months. Frankly, I don't know how honest you've been with yourself about it, considering how out of control you've been. It's very, we're getting now into like a sort of gaslighting sort of space from her. Maybe not all the way there, but getting close. Gordon's like, I'm doing my best to deal with this. I'm taking the pills. I'm going to group. She's like, what you think is a joke? He says, what? She says, I saw you making fun of it. I was there. You weren't even trying. He's like, you're spying on me in therapy? Okay, so it's group therapy. So he's kind of complaining now, but he's also busted. So I don't know where you go with this. She's like, yeah, because you keep things from me. And he says, well, it sounds like we're keeping things from each other. Well, she says, well, on the topic of secrets, how about you tell me about what happened in California? Busted. She says, Joni told me that you and Henry got in a shouting match. We're going to get a close-up of Gordon in focus. Donna is behind him, out of focus. She says, Joni told me that you got into a shouting match that was apparently so bad you had to take the girls to a motel. Why would you not tell me that? Gordon makes a clear decision here. He's like, I'm done with this. Like, I'm done with dancing around this. And he says, because, Donna, I had an affair. He shouts it. He says it confidently. He says it like, this is what happened. And it knocks all the wind out of Donna. What a crushing moment to watch her face. Her voice just breaks. She's like, what? And Gordon is just sort of whimpering about it. He's like, well, it was one night. It was meaningless. It was absolutely stupid. Donna is horrified. He says, do I regret it? Yeah, every minute of every day. When I found out I was sick, I looked around for my marriage and it wasn't there. You weren't there. Maybe this has been broken for a long time and we're the only ones who don't know it. She looks really pained, really hurt here, but this also reminds me of exactly, 10 episodes ago. Well, 11, when we get to the Comdex episode in season 1. And Donna's basically saying the same thing. She only got as far as a kiss with Hunt, but she was saying all the same things about the state of their marriage. And that has to be hitting her as he's saying that on some level. Like she's hurt because he had an actual affair, but it has to sound familiar, some of this language that he's using here. Camera's going to pan to behind Gordon, and we're going to see Joni's been standing there. We don't know how long, but she's been standing there, and she runs away now that she's been spotted. Donna's like, Joni, Joni. She runs after her, but Joni's out of the room, and Donna just stops at the door. And Gordon is like, oh no, what a mess. Donna just looks back at him and walks away. Now we're going to get a close-up of a coffee pot sputtering. And Cam's like, ow, it's sizzling, it's hitting her. It's early morning. Cam's the first up. And we're going to hear the door open and close. Cam's like, who just came in? So she walks into the living room and she sees Donna sitting in the darkness at her desk alone. You're here early, Cam says. And Donna says, I don't know that Gordon and I love each other anymore. Cam is just sort of standing there, reactionless, waiting for more information. Donna says, and I don't know if we can fix it. Looks like she's been crying. She says, I don't even know if I want to fix it. Cam nods. She's listening. She walks over. She pulls up a chair next to Donna. Cam says, I don't know what it's like, being married. I don't know, and I won't pretend to understand what you and Gordon have or don't. I mean, that's something only you two can figure out. She very tenderly puts down her mug. And she says, I do know that once in a while, life can give us a sign, point us to a different place, make good things come out of bad. If it weren't for Cardiff Electric, there would never have been a mutiny. And if it weren't for Gordon Clark, I would never have met you. And Donna's been sort of like wiping a tear away here and just looking sort of sullen there. But when Cam says that, it really kind of touches her. And she looks over at Cam. Cam says, listen, I don't want to add to your misery here, but the coffee maker's broken. So I think we should move to California. And it's just so out of the blue. Like the coffee maker bit sort of loosened it up and made Donna laugh a little bit. They both laugh. She's like, I think we should move to California. She broaches it. She's going in for the kill with this one. I mean, she's being gentle about the suggestion, but Donna doesn't stop her. Donna looks at her like she's listening. And so Kim says, here. She pulls out a piece of paper from her pocket. She gives it to Donna. She says, the diesel sub. If we can't bring the mainframe to mutiny, maybe we can bring mutiny to the mainframe. I think life is giving us a sign here. Yeah, we'll have to beg, borrow, and steal the money for it, but I know it would be a fresh start. Seems like something we could both use. We start pushing in on Donna's face, and it's like there's a little glimmer of hope there. Like she's not shutting this down. Donna has been shutting a lot of things down with Cam in this episode, but she is not doing that here. She's listening. So we're going to go from here to Gordon knocking on Joe's door. And because, hey, Gordon kind of sees where Joe's coming from. Joe's going to answer, and his Achilles heel is no longer casual wear. He's wearing the casual half-zip t-shirt that he likes to go running in. His hair's a bit askew. Where it's like, hey, Joe says, what's up? Can I come in? Joe nods, lets him in to his apartment where there's really not a whole lot of furniture. There's a mattress on the floor in the living room and a TV on the kitchen counter, and not a lot else in this apartment. Gordon's like, I love what you've done with the place. Joe's going to lean up against a wall. Gordon says, listen, I was the one who wrote the code that took everything down. Okay, it was me. Joe's like, yeah, he didn't do anything wrong. Gordon says, yeah, but neither did you. Joe says, I appreciate that, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, again, it's about, it's a subjective thing. Did Joe do anything wrong? But Gordon is saying, I believe in you, Joe. He comes to Joe's apartment to say all this. Gordon says, well, what about Sarah? Joe shakes his head. It looks like he had been crying before Gordon came in. Gordon's like, Joe, damn it, you're a good man. You make it really difficult for other people to see that, but I see it, and I suspect she had something to do with it. Joe kind of walks further into the room and leans against the kitchen counter. At least he's in the same room as Gordon now. Joe says, is that supposed to make me feel better? Gordon says, well, look, I just came by to give you this. He throws this disc that says tabula rasa on it onto the counter. He says, I went into the Sonaris code. I fixed the missing branch error. Not only that, this version targets older copies. It eradicates them. I muscled it up some too, so it'll inoculate machines from future infection. It's an antidote. It won't undo the damage done, but maybe you can use it to make things right, or at least be a sign of good faith to Jacob Wheeler. So it's almost like if Joe sort of brought a virus to these people who were angry with him, like both in the actual virus of Sonaris and in himself in some way, if that's how he's seeing it, it's like, nope, this is the thing that you can give them to protect them in the future so they can be safe with you and safe with this program. Joe says, I don't care about Jacob Wheeler. Gordon says, okay, screw him, do it for Sarah. When we came to dinner here that night, you said to me, she makes all the suffering of what we do worth it. And I'm telling you, that's not an easy thing to come by. And when you do, it's even harder to make it last. Maybe it can't, but I do know that you'll hate yourself every day if you don't at least try. And Gordon is both talking from the standpoint of his own marriage and Joe's relationship with Sarah. He looks back and Joe is just deflated. Joe's like, okay. Gordon kind of holds his gaze and Joe's like, oh yeah, okay. And he grabs the disc. And Gordon's going to give Joe a hug and pats his back. And little boy face on Joe, my God, just crushing. If you're Joe in this situation, you are the victim. Like a woman that you probably still love just did a thing to take you down, you know, and all he did was try to help her. That's Joe's reality. So it's not a good day for Joe. Plus, this other woman who is the person who was pumping him up, his hype woman, she left him. So this is it. So Joe, after Gordon leaves, Joe looks down at this disc and he looks at his ring finger with the ring still on it. Because we need to check that ring finger again. That's like, well, at least 3 times now, right? So we're going to go from here to a big group meal at a restaurant with a bunch of guys because we haven't seen Boz in a while. What's Boz been up to? Well, he's at this lunch, this company lunch. A bunch of the senior guys, execs, they're all having lunch together. So we're going to see that Boz is holding court. He's telling a big story. We're going to see this sometimes in this show. And I think, you know, we're starting to see the writers are writing more to this Boz storytelling component. And so Boz has a whole group around him. He's like, so I go in and I tell him, I said, now it looks like we're going to finish this year 110% of quota. And then he does a voice of the accountant and all the guys are laughing. And then he tells this whole joke and he gets to a punchline about, you know, a business deal closing in Q4. And he's like, sure it did. I closed that son of a bitch on the 35th of December myself. And then they all laugh. They all laugh way too loudly for the joke because this is the kind of joke that kills in this specific room. And James comes over. James sort of saw all this unfolding. He was standing off to the side and now he comes up because he's getting a chance to also be in front of the senior people at this company, at his company. And so James comes over. He's like, I tell you, he's full of these. Get him going. He won't stop. So a guy named Mr. Stern, maybe one of the executives, says, well, James, you were right about your daddy. A month in, he's already whipping this place into shape. So it's been a full month that Boz has been at this company now. James says, I had no doubt. Boz is like, well, it's a damn fine place to work, I gotta say. And thank you for inviting me to this big muckety muck lunch around here. Mr. Stern says, I know you're only manager level now. We're not fast tracking anything here, but we thought it'd be good for you to hear how things are operating at the upper levels and have your voice in the room. And James is going to jump in here. He's like, and Mr. Stern, it goes without saying that I sincerely appreciate the invite to sit down with the senior team today. A junior boy like me is a guppy at this table. I mean, James is doing everything he can to get his foot in the door. Boz, his dad, is his way of getting noticed at this company. But Boz is also, you know, a big storyteller and takes a lot of attention in the room. Mr. Stern says, well, without you, we wouldn't have John. and his dad smiles awkwardly. James smiles a little bit. But it's like, what an interesting dynamic. It's like, you don't want to steal your kid's thunder, but you kind of have to. Like, what do you do? So Mr. Stern continues with a joke of as a story joke of his own. It's to do with being in the black and black coffee. Another joke that wouldn't kill in any other room, but does here. And so we're going to hear some laughter from his joke. And as everybody is laughing about this Mr. Stern's joke, Boz starts to look further and further away from the situation. He's looking very distant. Everybody else's voices start to get echoey. We're hearing a ringing sound in his ears. We look close up at Boz. He does not look happy. He wanted the safety and security, but this is it. This is what that looks like, and it's not lighting his fire. So, okay, we're going to go from here to Donna standing in the backyard of the Mutiny House. What a cool shot they picked. I love where they pointed this camera because she looks like she's just out in nature. There's like I think is that like a barn or a shed in the backyard. And it just looks like her in nature with this beautiful wood barn or shed. Donna's staring. The camera's going to come around to see the front of her face. We're going to see that move a couple different times in this episode in terms of camera work. And then, there's music playing softly in the background. She is lost in thought. We can see Cam looking out the window at her. Cam walks back into the hallway. Gordon bursts through the front door. He's panicked. He's looking for Donna. Cam's like, whoa, Gordon, what do you want? She's blocking him. He's like, I want Donna. She's like, I think you need to back off a little bit here. Gordon says, this has nothing to do with you. Cam says, Gordon, I want you out of my house. She's being very protective about Donna right now. She wants, her friend's hurting and she wants Donna to have a minute. But Donna comes in, either because it was good timing or because she heard some of this. She says, hey. Gordon says, is she here? Donna says, who? What the heck is going on? Gordon says, is she here? Who? It's Joni. Gordon's like, I thought she was with you. I can't find Joni. She's not at the house. She's not at your parents' house. Haley said she ran away. Everybody at this point in the office has stopped. They're standing. They're kind of getting engaged in this conversation. Donna just puts her hands to her face. She's like, okay. She sighs. She grabs the phone to make a call. And then we're going to see that she's now relocated to her house to make more calls. She's in the kitchen. And she's like, you haven't seen her at all? Sometimes she rides bikes with Heather after school. We're going to hear the car door close. And she's like, all right, well, just let me know. So she's been calling around to Joni's friends' parents. Nothing. Gordon comes in. It's like, so Donna, did you? And Gordon says, Donna says, did you? He says, no, he's been driving around. He went down different streets. He hasn't found her in any of the places that he would think to find her. Donna's getting worried. Meanwhile, we're seeing Haley looking out the window, which is about to become relevant. Donna's like, okay, so she took her backpack, her lunchbox is gone, her sleeping bag. Donna says, I need you to know that this wasn't me. This wasn't my illness. I didn't lose her. Haley said she ran away. Okay, I need you to know this wasn't me. I mean, I get why he's saying it. It's not the top priority right now. What do you do with this information? But it's like he would be so devastated to think that he couldn't take care of his kids, I think. And he's like, that's not the thing that's happening here. Haley says, Mom, Dad, look. They come to the window and she's pointing. He's like, what is that? Good question. What is that? There seems to be a tiny home in their backyard. Is that some sort of a she shed sort of a thing? It's a small structure, but it's all decorated. It looks like a little house for the kids. So Donna says, it's our camping lantern. The camping lantern is on in that little shed structure. So we're going to cut from here to Gordon and Donna with Joni in that little building. And I had a chance to talk with Morgan Hinkleman about this in the interview that I did with Morgan and Alana Kavanaugh. That was one of the first interview that I dropped. And she had a memory of being in the structure. And she was like, I don't even know what it was. I don't know what it is either, Morgan. I'm looking at it again. I have no idea, but it's a cool little space. It looks like something that was fixed up for the kids. So she's in that space, and Joni is revealing, like, I had to leave. I told a secret and it made you not in love anymore. What a huge amount of responsibility to take. You know, the kids were obviously being burdened by that information of what happened in California, but then it was also a burden to reveal it. So, you know, Joni in a way was protecting her sister by not making her sister say anything about it, which is a, you know, very heroic thing for her to do. But now she's sort of paying the price for that. But +1 for both parents here. Gordon's like, hey, listen, your mom and I may get into an argument sometimes, but it's never because of you. I don't know if Joni thinks she's getting the real story from Gordon here. So she turns to Donna and she says, are you going to get divorced? And Donna shoots it straight as she can. She says, Mommy and Daddy love each other very much, but there are some things that we need to talk about. So why don't you go to the house? She's going to cup Joni's face in her hands. They're not mad at her. She's like, give your sister a big old hug and you two can pick out what kind of pizza to get for dinner. Good girl. Joni's going to leave. They're going to watch as she goes into the house. And once the door closes behind Joni, and Gordon has hugged her also before she leaves. But once she gets into the house, Donna sits with it and she says, all right, I don't want to be the woman that leaves her husband when he's sick, but that doesn't mean I won't. I thought a lot about what you said, and I think you're right. This marriage isn't working. So we need to do what's best for the kids and what's best for us. Here are my terms. You're going to write a check. He looks up at her. It's going to be for almost as much money as we have, and we're going to use it to buy a 3033 mainframe. Not only that, you're going to help me fix it up and get it running again. Gordon is very confused. Of all the things that she could present to him, like, how does this have anything to do with their marriage? She continues. She says, the mainframe is in Daly City. So yes, you are going to move to California. We all are. That is what it costs to fix our marriage. Gordon's like, is this extortion? She says, no, it's an investment, not just in the mainframe, but in something you believed in, or something that I thought you believed in before you did what you did. Gordon says, I was wrong. I'm sorry. I think Gordon rightly kind of wants to get to the heart of the issue. He wants to unpack that because it sort of feels like what Donna's presenting here is a Band-Aid. And is that really going to get them where they need to be? Gordon says, I told you it was a mistake. Donna says, I don't want to talk about that. Can't do it. Cameron is going to offer you a job at Mutiny and you're going to take it. Gordon says, you want me to work at Mutiny? Donna says, no, I want you to work with me. I love that exchange. That's what she was asking for to begin with. Even in the beginning of the series where she was like, if you work with if you partner with Joe McMillan, you have to partner with me too. She's been saying this. And now she's coming back to it. Donna says, and this taking turns, this one person holding the kite strings while the other person is off chasing something, that isn't working. Gordon says, you really think that moving to California is going to fix everything? She said, I don't know, but it's the best I could come up with. And I do know that if we stay here, we're not going to make it. The camera pulls back and we're looking through the window of this tiny home, the she shed, or this, whatever this shed is. It's pulling back through the window and it feels, the cameras, we're going to do a similar trick with a camera later on as well, where it just feels like we're outside looking in on this relationship, and these could be any two people in any small shed anywhere in the world, you know, like this is the conversation happening in this one. Makes us very much the voyeur in the situation. Okay, so we are going to go back to Stokes Capital. The receptionist is frustrated as Joe paces in front of her for the millionth time. And she's like, it's been 3 hours. I suggest you make an appointment and come back at a more reasonable time. I mean, that's like, that's as much as a receptionist might be able to say to let you know that they're done with you. Bondum is going to come out. He's like, hey, Joe's pissed at him and not shielding it. Bondum says, I was wondering how long you'd wait. Joe walks past him into his office angry. To actually articulate that is so obnoxious. I can't with this guy, but you gotta be wondering, like, if you like they treated Joe so badly. Why is this guy coming back? So Bondum is going to chuckle as Joe's walking into his office and leading the way. And he's like, I'm surprised, Joe. Joe whips out a disc that says M on it. And he goes to Bondum's computer. Bondum's like, you're persistent. I'll give you that much. Whoa, what are you doing? Joe slides the disc in, taps in a computer, a key or two, and the computer screeches a bit. Sonaris starts running on Bondum's computer. Joe walks around to the other side of the desk. Bondum walks to his side of the desk and he's like, wait, what? What happened? So Joe says, see, after my time at Cardiff, I went away. I decided I should do things differently, operate from a place of total authenticity, be open, be human, do the right thing. Bondum's tapping keys. What's happening to his computer? Joe's like, but the truth is no one else made that pact with themselves, so why should I? Like, I tried being honest and authentic and never mind. Bondum says, what is this? Damn it. Joe says, your computer is now infected with the virus. It's the same one that took down West Group. He's got Bondum's attention now. He continues, it's a malignant fetch program and it will spread from this box to every other networked computer in your organization. Bondum is freaking out. He's going to call security. Joe says, security? You want security? Bondum picks up the phone receiver. Joe pushes the button because that's how it used to work in those days. You pick up the receiver, but there was a little button. When you picked it up, there was a little button that had been pushed. Now you can make the call. Joe pushes it again so no call can be made. And he says, why? Because you don't trust me? You don't know what I'll do? Who knows what I'll do? When there's no trust, you're vulnerable. Just because you play by the rules doesn't mean anyone else will. So what should you do? Joe's going to release the button again, and Bondum just decides to hang up the phone. He's listening. Joe says, you should protect yourself. Build a wall. Not like that, because Bondum is sort of going around trying to like tap the machine, figure out what to do. He was like, not like that, like this. He holds up tabula rasa. He slides it into the computer. It beeps. He hits a couple keys. Joe explains. It's like the Hercule Poirot explanation of the crime. Joe says, do you know what a vaccine is? It's not a medicine. It's a little bit of the virus. You take a little bit of it, of something bad, so you can never be hurt like that again. Check it out. And the virus has now stopped doing its evil deeds. Bondum goes back to his desk. Now the computer seems fine. Bondum's like, how'd you do that? Joe says, with an antidote to the poison. Sure, this program only protects your machine from this specific virus, but the real product here is security, a shield against those who would hurt you, perhaps because of their own carelessness or simply because they want to destroy you. And after the national exposure of what happened at West Group, entire organizations are going to be ravenous for this. He takes the disc with tabula rasa on it. He says, the real security is trusting no one. Bondum just shakes his head. He says, and you came up with this all on your own? Joe just smiles. So this idea that Joe is now administering antidotes to people infecting somebody else's business is a little ironic, given the plot of the last two seasons. But, you know, he's actually got Bondum's attention now. I am, you know, thinking about those people, the users on the network who's just, he stopped the virus, but it did damage some people's systems. But whatever, that's the cost of doing business, I guess. And so, all right, possible new venture here. We're going to go back to the Clark living room. Joni and Haley, they're reading and drawing. And Gordon comes in with the pizza. He shouts, pizza's here. The girls say, yay. And Gordon's saying, all right, be careful. Don't burn yourselves. The phone rings and it is a call from Joe. Joe says, create the sickness, sell the cure. Donna has walked in at this point to take care of the pizza, to start dishing it out. Gordon's like, what? Joe repeats himself, create the sickness, sell the cure. Remember what you when you came over to my place? Gordon says, I can't talk right now, Joe. Donna looks up. this Joe McMillan. They've just had fights about him. Like, this can't be. Joe says, no, I took your advice, Gordon. I turned this into something good, really good. Gordon's like, yeah, that's great, but I've got to go. He looks back at Donna. She looks at the pizza like, no, I'm not listening to this conversation. I mean, this is a test in their marriage. He needs to hold strong if he wants to stay with her. So Joe says, no, you got to hear me out. You'll be glad you did. We should celebrate. There's an incredible opportunity. I was like, what are you even talking about right now? Joe says, I'm talking about you and me together, partnering again. Gordon should not be hearing this out. He's realizing. He was like, what are you doing right now? We got to talk this through. I'll come over. Gordon says, I can't do this anymore. We're moving to California. Joe pauses. He's like, nope, great. That's great. This is better done in California anyway. Gordon says, no. I'm going to work for Mutiny. Donna's watching him with her hawk eyes through all this. Piercing eyes. He says, I need to focus on my family right now. Joe is being very serious, and the camera, is just like just shooting up at him. He's just like the tallest version of himself. He's going to be the big man on campus, whether Gordon wants him to be or not, maybe. And Joe's like, you going to work for Mutiny? And he's exasperated, and he just hangs up the phone as Gordon's saying, no, just listen, Joe. And that is the end of that. And we see that Joe has had this entire conversation from a phone in the Stokes Capitol office. The first thing that he did when he left that room with Bondum was call Gordon. Good on Joe. There's at least that, right? There was no time delay. He was the first thing he did. He probably gave Gordon the credit in the room, maybe, or at the very least, he called Gordon immediately. All right, so now we are going to get a time jump. 1 month later, Cam walks up to a house. She's got a paper in her hand or an envelope in her hand. She walks right into the front door. It's Tom's house. Why did she just walk right in? Tom is working at a desk and was not expecting Cam to come in because it's been a long time since he has seen her. And who just walks right into somebody's house like that? It's like, whoa, good morning. She leaves the door wide open. What is happening? Kim is very professional. She's, other than storming into his house and leaving the door open, she's otherwise very professional. She says, so here's my offer. While Mutiny is no longer a games company, we are relocating to California and could use a talented hand like yours as we attempt to take our service national. I don't need an answer right away. You can decide. She puts the envelope on his desk. She says, if you want to be on the 8:45 out of DFW tonight. Tom is very surprised. He wasn't expecting any of this, even to see her today, let alone have this thrown in front of him. Cam says, even if you don't want the job, just come anyways. It's a free plane ticket. She smiles. Tom smiles a little bit, but it's heavy. It's not like I'm happy about this. It's like a polite smile with a heaviness behind it. He says, that's not a lot of time to decide. She says, or maybe it's just enough time not to overthink it. And she leaves the house. Tom grabs the envelope. It's the United Airlines ticket, and he thinks. And what's his decision? Well, we're going to hear the song Heaven play from Talking Heads. We're inside the plane. People are onboarding. The Mutiny team gets on the plane. Carl is describing the plot of Back to the Future. And Bodhi has had enough of Carl describing the plot of Back to the Future. And Donna is going to high five Lev. So glad Lev showed up. Hey, Lev. We see Yo-Yo. Yo-Yo is, not only is he back with Mutiny, he's relocating with all the rest of them. We're going to see Haley and Joni drawing in their seats. And they have matching red bows in their hair. Donna looks at them and she says to Gordon, I was worried about them pulling them out of school and away from their friends and my folks, but they're the happiest people on this plane. The girls are chatting. Gordon says, we could be happy again. I really believe that. And who knows, maybe when we get to California, I don't know, maybe we have another. At this point, the lyrics of the song say, heaven is a place. And Donna, she smiles painfully. And she says, I'm going to go to use the bathroom before we take off. She goes into the bathroom and she just cries. What a perfectly placed set of lyrics right at that moment, because obviously she's thinking about the fact that she was about to have Gordon's baby and aborted the baby. So we're going to hear the flight attendant over the intercom, and they're getting ready to close the door and push off in a minute. So Kim's now really watching the door to see if Tom's going to show up, because he hasn't shown up yet. And she's going to keep watching, and she gets anxious. She looks out the window for just having a thing to do. And then we start hearing a whole bunch of cheers on the plane. She looks back. Could it be Tom? It's Boz. Boz says, all right, ladies, I never thought I'd say this, but I guess it's time to move out to the left coast. Boz, Mr. Texas is going to fly out and live in California. That one lunch was all he needed to really confirm what he was feeling at that company. After being there for a little while, just didn't work out for him, and he left it behind. I don't know what that does to James. That's rejection on a couple levels, I think, for James, but it wasn't the right move for Boz. And so he gets on a plane and he wants to start taking risks again. Maybe he wants some more toaster food. Everybody's cheering. They're very excited to see Boz. Boz goes to Kim, are you ready for this? She nods. The flight attendant closes the door. Tom did not get on board. We also need to see what's happening in Gordon's world. Gordon picks up a magazine next to him. But first of all, we're going to see a 2-page Apple ad, which I froze the screen here and it read, it's the same old Apple II, except for the front, back, and inside. Sounds like they needed a rebrand. And then he flips some pages and he sees an article headline that stops him. The article headline says, Macmillan Utility nets $10 million backing for new antivirus software venture. Gordon's like, son of a. That comment from Donna about Joe being toxic, that Gordon was like, yeah, whatever. He didn't do anything wrong. He might walk that back now. The plane engine, it's going to whine a bit. And we are now going to see one final scene. Joe is walking into a commercial real estate space with a real estate agent. It's empty. He's being shown the space. Looks like a top floor or a high up floor in a large office building. The realtor says you'd have the entire floor. It's enough space for 100+ desks, but because of the prime Bay Area location, I'll just let you know I have several other interested parties. Joe has already moved to California. I don't know where Sarah went. I'm guessing that she probably went back to Austin. Joe moved to California knowing everybody else is about to move to California, by the way. And here we are. So Joe looks around, he's like, I'll take it. And the real estate agent says, do we need to discuss the price? He shakes his head. She says, all right, well, then I'll go get the paperwork. And she's going to leave him in this room. What a beautiful, what a cool shot. He's in this empty office space, huge. It's more than just, remember his old wake up routine of being in his underwear and sliding open the blinds and looking out the window. Well, now he has all of San Francisco in front of him. It's nighttime. He's looking at all the lights on the buildings. And he has this whole bay of windows, no blinds to get in his way. And so we're going to see, we hear some music playing. We see Joe's reflection in the window in San Francisco. I love it. Once again, it's like Joe is trapped in San Francisco, or Joe is in San Francisco, literally. He rubs his finger, his ring finger. There's no ring on it anymore. He's looking down at it. It's like our fourth view of his hand. This time, no ring on it. And he looks up. He looks up straight down the barrel of the camera. It is positively chilling. I assume he was going for chilling, because that is where we landed. And then the camera pulls back. So the camera gets behind him again, and it pulls back, pulls back. So we're seeing the wider view of the room. It keeps pulling back until the camera itself is from out the door. And we're seeing him in another room. And that is this episode. And, it ties a bunch of things up with a bow, but it sort of doesn't tie anything up with the bow. And now we have a lot to run with going into season 3. So looking forward to it. Obviously, we're going to get people in California now. So that'll be exciting. But in terms of music, there were a few songs that we heard here. There was Looking Back Texas, Back to the Basics of Love. It was a live version. It was by Waylon Jennings. The original was from 1977. That's when Joe comes to Gordon's garage. Then we're going to get Bahama's Breeze by Ghost Knife from 2011. Hard to make out, but it was playing at the Mutiny House when Gordon comes to find Donna. And then Heaven by Talking Heads, very prominently placed needle drop at the end of this episode. 1979 song. It was also the second song on their 1984 concert album, which I think is interesting because that makes it feel even more fresh and relevant for this particular time frame. And that's when the whole Mutiny team gets on a plane to go to San Francisco. Or whoever went to San Francisco got on the plane then. In terms of favorite quotes, I've got a couple that I'm looking at here. The first one is I'll go with an honorable mention from Donna. This taking turns, this one person holding the kite strings while the other person is off chasing something, that isn't working. I liked a lot of the things she said in that speech, but that one felt like a really good summary of how they've been trying to operate has been not in their best interests all this time. I love this line from Cam, so I'm going to make this my number one choice. If it weren't for Cardiff Electric, there would have never been a mutiny. And if it weren't for Gordon Clark, I would have never met you. Cam says a couple things that kind of lead into that, but I just love the specifics of this. And I think this is something that's actually very relatable for so many of us in life, where it's like, without this thing that I don't really love, I wouldn't have this thing that I do really love. And that's often a way that we can soften past events that don't make us smile. And so I just really like, it's a really poignant thing from Cam, and it's a touching line about friendship. And it's one that Donna takes as a note of friendship in a moment when she really needs that. All right, let's get into some feedback. And I just thought, I wanted to pull in some feedback that relates to this episode, but also stuff that feels a little bit more overarching, because there's a bunch of feedback that I've been holding on to that I've gotten at various points in these first 2 seasons that felt like, how much of that can I weave in here? So first, let's talk to Jennifer Roner, who shared this comment a long time ago regarding season 1. But I wanted to be able to touch on this here. Jennifer says, I definitely get the idea that Donna is not happy where they are, but feels like someone has to be the responsible adult and take care of the family, especially since Gordon seems to have checked out. But we do see a hint of her still having the fire to take chances and create new things when she tells Gordon to build it toward the end of the pilot episode. We see a lot more of that as season 1 progresses too. So I just wanted to come back to that here, because once again, this feeling that they've just been operating in a certain way in their marriage and brushing some things under the rug, and it's not working, and they're raising that now, and they need to do something about it. Donna was the one in early season 1 who just says, all right, go build the giant, or it wasn't named yet at that point, but go work with Joe and partner with me. I'm giving you my blessing to do this. And she was willing to sort of bet on the situation. And Gordon, I think, was a little bit more hesitant about it, but she kind of gave him the green light and inspired him to take a chance. And now she's again being, Gordon kind of wanted to focus on the relationship and the conversation they were having about their relationship. And she's like, no, we need to do this adventure. And I don't necessarily know, that's what she needs to get through the realization of Gordon's affair. Is that like just brushing this under the rug again? Maybe. But it's in line with how she approached things in season 1. Okay. Really interesting comment from new commenter Yaris Tex about the pilot that I wanted to bring back in here because of this reminiscing that Joe and Gordon have in front of or in Gordon's garage. Yaris Tex has tech knowledge and shared something really interesting that I wanted to bring in here. Yaris Tex says, despite being my favorite scene, which although technically accurate, is extremely unnecessary in the historical context, pure dramatization. When Gordon bought the IBM 5150, the original IBM PC, he would have also got all the IBM manuals, including the technical reference manual. Guess what? The IBM documentation included the complete IBM ROM BIOS 8088 assembly code. It was all there. So the treasure map Joe is talking about already came with the computer when you bought it. However, the majority of the audience does not know this, so it's a very good dramatization of what the reverse engineering process would be if the IBM PC did not come with any relevant documentation. Still, they wouldn't be out of the woods. As soon as someone looks at the IBM ROM BIOS code, they are considered dirty. They cannot create any new compatible BIOS in legal terms as they looked at the original IBM code. So just like in the show, someone else would need to do it, someone that had never looked at the IBM code. So this gives us a justification for IBM threatening to sue Cardiff Electric. The show fails in one point. Cameron starts to work on the BIOS without any specification guidelines whatsoever. This is unrealistic. This is what would need to happen. Someone who looked at the code like Gordon would need to write a specification guideline where he would describe each BIOS function and what it needed to do and what it needed to return. This without ever meeting or talking to Cameron. As soon as the specification is written, it would be then passed to Cameron for her to write a new BIOS. This is how Compaq did it. Other companies like Eagle Computer straight ripped off IBM BIOS and were sued into oblivion. It doesn't matter how much of a genius Cameron is, she would need that specification guideline, as otherwise it would be guesswork to write a 100% compatible BIOS. It could take them years otherwise. However, I still love this scene. It does create a bond between the shrewd Joe and Gordon, the misunderstood genius. Deep inside, they both want this. It's a dramatization, but a good one. Although with hindsight, if you know history, and as soon as you watch the scene, you'll say, why waste a weekend all this? Didn't he read the IBM documentation? This is my point of view, but this is brilliant writing for a TV series, so I wouldn't take anything out of it. Whoa! So I wanted to bring that in because I've been hanging on to this one, and thank you so much for that wonderful feedback and for shining a light on that. I wanted to bring it in here because obviously we get a whole scene with Joe and Gordon at the garage again, talking it through, remembering that moment where they had this bonding experience together. It's so good to hear from somebody who has tech knowledge in this level about, because a lot of people say they love this scene, even if they seem to have a lot of technical knowledge. And it's good to know that even if the scenario doesn't make a ton of sense, it was written well enough that gets a pass. This show needs to be able to make people happy who don't know anything about the industry and who do. And to be able to walk that line is super tricky. And you get a scene like this that's very much like the sports montage, like, oh, they're putting the work in, and it bonds us with the characters as well as them to each other. But I would worry that this would take people out of it completely if they know the technical background. Sounds like for you as a viewer, that didn't happen. And I'm really glad to hear that. But thank you for the background. Now, from Synthetic Gerbil, who, let's see, I'm going to share feedback from 3 different episodes here on a few different points. First, from 110, last season, season finale. I think Gordon being mad at Donna for the affair with Hunt would be tumultuous and be hard to get over for both the couple or the audience in any other show, considering how far the affair didn't go and how much Gordon and Donna love each other. It was kind of just a cute scene for Gordon to get over it and come to bed. I think that's tough to play out in terms of both humor and softness. Credit to the writers to tread carefully when writing this scene, but also make a heartwarming scene out of it. And of course, I don't know if there are 2 better actors to handle it than Carrie Bechet and Scoot McNairy. This is the scene where Gordon has been sleeping on the couch for some number of nights, close to a week, And Donna finally comes out, sees him making up the couch to sleep in it again. She's like, no, not again. You're sleeping in the bed. And then he like storms out of the room, but it becomes sort of like a playful energy and it's sort of put behind them. Or is it? I mean, gosh, it's kind of, things are kind of adding up for them. They're addressing things, but they're also adding up. And so I wanted to raise that again here because I think in how Donna is approaching Gordon's affair, she has to be remembering what she did with Hunt. The thing with Hunt got as far as kissing, but it was an emotional affair and she was invested in it to a degree. So I think she would have been prepared to give more things up for that situation to come to fruition in some way. And she knows that, and she knows all the reasons why she felt like she needed to do that. And Gordon's articulating many of the same things here. So how much does she hold all this against him? How much does she try again? I think that the memory of that seems to be fresh enough for her. That she's approaching this differently than if she hadn't had that situation with Hunt. Synthetic Gerbil also wants to talk about 109. Okay, this comment. This was a great episode, maybe the best episode of season 1. My major quibble with this episode is just the end, and it's a technical one, not a thematic one. The Macintosh was not revealed at Comdex 1983. It was announced but held closely under wraps. Also, while early Apple was a success, I feel like the show was playing a bit with the successful Apple we know now to retroactively push Apple being on the cutting edge in 1983. While Apple was doing well with the premiere of the Macintosh, they kind of spent the rest of the 80s and 90s failing over and over again, which I think to its credit, Halt and Catch Fire no longer puts Apple in the running for the big names in tech in the show. I think showing the Macintosh at the end of the episode somewhat underplays the amount of success Compaq did have with their portable computer. Maybe this is some of my Houston pride coming through for Compaq and a little bit misguided of me, but the early laptops and portables were a game changer. While the speed is playing up in Joe's speech near the end, he doesn't really say how big of a deal the portability really was for personal computers. Sure, the Giant and Compaq Portable or Data General 1 did not have text to speech or anything or amazing graphics, but they were an IBM portable that you could take on the go, which wasn't what the original Macintosh was trying to do. They were like two separate categories almost. That all said, I totally get where the writers were coming from in this episode and showing how Cam's interface could have potentially been a game changer and driving home the missed opportunity to have both portability and humanity with Joe's look at the reveal of the Macintosh all candlelit. But that's kind of the real life problem at that point in time in computer history. You couldn't have both. I think the writers needed to have something to crash this anachronistic reveal before the end of the series. So that's why the slingshot was introduced. But also, of course, it served us a lot of drama and intrigue, plus seeing how Cam has more visions of computing rather than working quickly and having more power. Plus, you have the payoff of the famous Ridley Scott Mac commercial next episode. Okay, thank you for the history on this. I love that we're able to start weaving in like what was happening in the tech world at the time versus what we were choosing to show in this story. What the reason that I wanted to bring that in here was that because I saw this comment, I specifically took note of that 2-page ad from Apple at the end of this episode when Gordon sees it on the plane, where it looks to me like Apple is trying to rebrand. They're like the Apple II. It's just like the old one, except everything is different. Every single thing is different. The front, back, the inside is all different. That's the sound of a rebrand, I would say. And this comment gives me some context on why they might have needed to do that. We haven't been telling their story along the way in this last, basically whole season, but it's something that is sort of brought in even just through showing us this one ad. Synthetic Gerbil also wanted to share something on 205 that I wanted to look at. And actually, there's a couple different commenters who are sort of going to be weaving in here. So Synthetic Gerbil says, so after hearing you go over a lot of the scenes, I feel like maybe I was a little too harsh to act like people who think Joe was targeting Sarah as far back as the Fisk Observatory scene in order to get to her father. Pause. So I've come to understand Synthetic Gerbil had been in some forums with other Halt and Catch Fire fans previously, and there was debate about why Joe was going to Sarah at the beginning of the season or the end of season 1. And there was a debate about whether it was all because Jacob was a mark. So Synthetic Gerbil is sort of revisiting it all. Continuing on with the comment. I still don't think that's the case, that he was targeting Sarah to get to her father. I still don't think that's the case, considering how all of this season plays out. And Joe just seems very earnest, torn, and confused, mostly the whole time. I also like Evan the Stray's theory that it's originally supposed to be a scene about his mom that was maybe retooled, that 110 scene. But that said, the show sure does have a lot of lines by the other 3 main characters that Joe has some kind of scheme going to get Jacob Wheeler's money. Every single one of them makes a comment on this. Jacob Wheeler thinks this as well. However, like you have pointed out with some of Joe's comments, especially "This is my way in," and like I had felt in retrospect, Joe has mostly been doing actions that consciously or unconsciously lead him to inserting himself into mutiny and back to Cameron, but in some ways getting Gordon to come back to him as well. I'm going to read, let's see, another comment here from Amelia before commenting on it. Amelia Flowers shares a thought from 207 that also touches on some of this. She says, I think there is a lot of truth in Joe's wake-up call with seeing himself through Sarah's eyes, looking at Jacob. At the end of season 1, the she mystery. Yes, I'd love to know the writer's ideas and the introduction of Sarah and Joe's reasons to be with her. I really like this idea of a previous connection that he could be authentic with, which reminded him of what he had with Cam. Perhaps this was the start of Joe's change, but then going back into the business world, it's so familiar that he falls back even at the dinner party with Gordon and Donna. Sarah rightly calls him out. At this point, I think Joe is still that lost little boy. He doesn't know who Joe the man is. He goes back to the comfortable formal suit that he symbolically burnt. I also want to give a nod to Evan the Stray's takes. I've been having all kinds of conversation with Evan, really unpacking this decision for Joe to go to Fisk Observatory at the end of season 1. He's going to find her, she, and we don't know who she is. And Evan thought that it was Joe's mom. And Evan thought that it was Joe's mom because, look, we're talking about the stars. We've talked, she brought him up to the roof when he was a kid to look at the stars. It's the only she we would be aware of at that point. Evan thought back to that scene with Joe and his dad where he goes to take that job back at IBM. And it felt to Evan like, ooh, is this something that was sort of slipped in? Were there lines added later? Were there reshoots? Was there, because in that conversation, Joe's dad, it's specifically said that his mom is dead. So there's this whole conversation about like, is this something that was always planned this way? Was it meant to be ambiguous? Did the writers know what was going to happen, that we were going to introduce Sarah? Were they trying to leave room for him to go to his mom? There's so much speculation that comes out of all of that. But then when you do find out that it's Sarah that he went to see at the start of season 2, why is he trying to find Sarah? And this all relates back to this question I've been asking all season of what was the way in about? Was it to Cam? Was it to Sarah? Was it to Jacob? Was it to Gordon? Was it back to the tech industry and the types of jobs where he could be a visionary again? I think, there's like 5 different possible theories I'm prepared to go with on that. And for me, yeah, this has been Cam, but I can absolutely appreciate that you could think that he was trying to get to Jacob's money, and Sarah was a way into Jacob's money. So there is all of that to consider. And at the end of all this, I've had other feedback too, and there are other takes I'd like to explore in the future. But what has Joe been trying to do? Who is Joe? I think one of the reasons I like the ambiguity of this season so much when it comes to Joe is that I think he himself believes that he has good intentions. And so that as an audience member is confusing, because even if I see something that looks like a manipulation, I'm pretty sure he's doing it thinking he's doing it for good reasons. That doesn't mean that there's going to be a good outcome. And it doesn't mean it won't hurt the people who he's doing this stuff to. It doesn't mean he's not culpable or accountable for things that go wrong, but it does mean that he thought he had the best of intentions. And so I have to take that into account as we talk about all of this. I think that he's really like being the victim, if not playing the victim. And he is feeling like, I was just trying to do good things. And now like all this stuff is, all the people are hurting me. There are outcomes that are hurting me here. And I think if he is going to, I think he is a far distance from peace right now. I think Joe and inner peace are not friends and have not yet been at any point in this series. I think maybe he thought he was on the road to that with Sarah, but he seems a very far distance from that right now. And we get that chilling look right down the barrel of the camera at the end of this episode. And I feel like he's still really, really far away from it. And, this is something's kind of breaking open in Joe right now. He knows that his heart or his emotions or his body are stopping him from something that he wants. And I hope he'll find it, because what a mess he's been causing trying to find it. It would be simpler if he could get there for a lot of other people. But yeah, I think there's so many different takes on this series, and it's been fun to sort of hear everybody's thoughts on Joe, because it's very complicated. And because what his intentions are and what the realities are do not necessarily line up. And now, some comments from Evan the Stray. Evan shares a bunch of thoughts on this episode. So starting with this, it's kind of amazing, like in a lovable way, that Donna is showing empathy unbeknownst to Gordon, despite him obviously not taking his group therapy session seriously. I think that Donna has not lost sight of the fact that Gordon's sick in the recent episodes, right? I think that it's giving her a certain amount of perspective that she might not have had if that reveal hadn't been made to her. And so I think that's weighing on her enough. Even in the conversation that she was having with Joni and Haley in this episode, where Haley is being so quiet and Joni is being so snarky and annoying and misbehaving. And she starts to get angry at that. And then it sort of dawns on her, like, what is happening in that household? And she softens right away. I think it's giving her like instant perspective on things, or let's say like 2-minute delay perspective on things that she might have approached in a harsher way if she didn't think Gordon was sick. So yeah, there is that. Okay, Evan says, Joe's driving 70 miles per hour with his eyes closed and with no hands. Okay, that's not suicidal, that's homicidal. To me, at the moment, this is maybe the least likable thing that Joe has done so far. Yeah, agreed. Not that I want Joe to do something to himself, but definitely like leave other people alone. This is so reckless. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Joe's gaze is transfixed on the two paintings, like a red at and a blue E, similar to the Internet Explorer logo at Stokes Capital, like Cameron's was. Joe gets to speak with a dependable jerk, Tim Bondum. Agreed. I'm reading Evan's comments for the first time today, and I'm loving this one so far. Lake Texoma is nearly 75 miles north of downtown Dallas on the Texas-Oklahoma border. It's peculiar to me that Joe would have driven the truck to immolate, love the writer's word selection here, the Giants, that far, unless Cardiff was really that far north of Dallas. It just seems odd to me without more story. Also, the guy sitting next to Joe looks like he could be Brendan Fraser's brother. The dependable jerk, Tim Bondum, boy, did I react exactly the same way. But also, I forgot, I knew that we had seen those paintings play before in the scene with Cameron, but I forgot that she really stopped and looked at them the same way that Joe was doing. So it's like, at another time, in another place, they stood in the exact same position, looking at the same two paintings. Cool. Joe talking to Gordon outside Gordon's garage feels like Joe has hit rock bottom and is legitimately quasi-suicidal. He gives back the programmable read-only memory chip that ostensibly meant so much to him. Maybe it represented a dream and success, but that memory became so burdensome and he had to get rid of it. However, he valued it too much, so he had to return it to its source. He said it used to help him through difficult times. This might be his most difficult time, and he's putting it in safe hands. He appears near tears as he's leaving. It's kind of hard to watch. Agreed. I think it's very much the type of thing that is a cry for help and would make Gordon concerned for him. But I don't know that he's prepared for the concern to be acted on. I don't know that he's actually expecting Gordon to help him, though he is he's opening the door for that to happen. And that gesture really lived rent free in Gordon's head and drove a lot of what happened with Donna. So, if it was a manipulation to get Gordon to care about him, it was pretty effective, but I don't necessarily think that that's what he was aiming for. I think I like Evan's interpretation of this as being more like, please keep this safe. Donna and Gordon fight. It starts over a discussion of Joe coming by that day. Gordon was concerned about him. Had the first Stokes meeting gone better, Joe probably never would have shown up there. Tim Bondum was concerned about Donna's and Cameron's relationship and offspring status in episode 2. If Tim wasn't such a jackwagon to Joe, Gordon and Donna's fight might have never happened. Oh, Evan. It's just interesting to notice that Tim is almost like the guy pushing over the first metaphorical domino that affects such a crucial moment in the Clark marriage. Man, talk about pinball, cause and effect. Yeah, that Tim jackwagon. Sure. I think Tim just was flat out. It's one thing to insult somebody, and it's another thing to overtly say, I am doing this to insult you. Because there's not even I don't know. It's just like he's so prepared to torch that relationship. It's just humiliating for Joe. And we've seen him be prompted into action by lesser things before. Gordon sees Joe and demonstrates concern and compassion for him. Gordon's hug appears to catch Joe off guard. I can't tell if Joe realizes that at least someone still cares about him or if another idea pops into his head. When does the idea form? I cited little boy face during the hug. So I think in that moment, there was the vulnerability of a child and not so much the idea. I want to say that Joe really, really thought about the idea of it all after Gordon left and he looked at the disc. That would line up better for me if I really read little boy face correctly. Evan also says Donna knows she can't divorce Gordon after Joni says that she made them not love each other anymore. So she tells Gordon how they're going to try to fix their marriage. Ooh, that's an interesting take. Because then if she does say, Gordon, we need a divorce, is there any way for Joni not to think that's her fault? Is that really what's driving Donna here? Maybe. That was a really upsetting thing for Donna to hear, and for her to see the weight that all this has been having on her kids. So maybe that was enough to say, let's try this again and not say that we're getting a divorce right on the back of Joni running away. Joe performs the most epically risky pitch to Mr. Bondum with success. If watching for the first time, I'd almost want Tabula Rasa to fail and wipe out Tim Bondum's computer and network. What a smug jerk. I know. At the end of the day, there are still some, what was it, a dozen or more users that are in a deeply problematic situation because of Joe's little proving of a point. But it could have been worse. He could have wiped out the entire network and let it keep running. It was risky. And there are a few people who are going to have a very bad day because of this. But it's Bondum that's going to have to explain and fix all that. So I guess all's well that ends well. Joe is excited to ask Gordon to come to work with him on the Tabula Rasa antivirus project, but Gordon declines hastily. I actually would have liked to see Gordon accept. Guess I got excited about the idea too. Yeah, that could have been cool to see a partnership here between Joe and Gordon on this idea. Um, and I do wonder whether Joe answered the question to Bondum of, so was this your idea? Do those guys know that this was Gordon's idea? Because McMillan, like the name of the company, McMillan Utility or Virus, it's got Joe McMillan's name in it. So that's something. We'll need to watch out for that. Heaven is a place. Talking heads from the official Halt and Catch Fire soundtrack is heard when people are boarding the plane. Cameron's expression when they're getting ready to close the cabin door indicates a painful truth just took root, followed by a look of fear and heartbreak that Tom declined her offer to get on the plane to at least check out California. But we got Boz instead, which is great to see. Cam tried. I think if Cam didn't try, she'd always wonder. And I see why Tom didn't get on the plane. I mean, he did her great kindness. He made it possible, like literally every single person on that plane from Mutiny can thank Tom for the fact that they're able to get on that plane. Because the fact that the people that took the meeting with Cam, Donna, and Boz that bought Extract and Defend, a game that Tom co-wrote and then made that company take the meeting. And frankly, Boz was the second person there who like knew that they weren't getting anywhere in that storage room of an office and then inserted himself into a meeting with the two senior guys in the conference room. They can thank Tom for having done that so that Extract and Defend could be sold, so that Mutiny could get back on its feet, make payroll. Like everything that happened to get them back on their feet happened because they sold that game. He's done what he, like he did them a kindness. He did Cam a kindness, and he doesn't need to be in this relationship. I think he probably needs to see some significant change from Cam. Like if like Cam has shifted a lot in season 2 as a leader, and I don't think that was in Tom's best interest the way that she shifted. So he would need to see something very different from her, and he's had no proof. He's had no visibility to it. Gordon mentions on the plane about maybe having a third child, which must be a front and center reminder to Donna she's hidden the abortion from him. She sobs in the restroom. That is another thing that has to be playing on her mind when she's talking to Gordon about secrets that she's holding, and they're having this fight about his affair. She still hasn't told him about this thing. Like, my goodness. It's a big one, and it's probably weighing on her, and nobody in the family knows about that one. And so it's another thing for her to like get perspective in the middle of a fight, even if it's a couple minutes too late. And now Evan's favorite quotes. Third runner-up, I am blown away. I've never met a legitimate psychopath before. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure people speculate about whether Joe is a psychopath or not. I don't think with where Joe goes, I can say that. But in season 1 and 2 here, gosh, gotta wonder. Second runner-up. Look, I know what this looks like. Like they parked the Looney Bird out back with his kitty toys, but I'll have you know that these aren't just toys. This is real transport modeling. Gordon. That's right, Gordon. Another one from Gordon is the first runner-up. Maybe this has been broken for a long time and we're the only ones who don't know it. I mean, it's an echo of what Donna said last season, right? That's got to resonate for her. And Evan the Stray really likes the Gordon lines in this episode. The winner is also from Gordon. Joe, damn it, you're a good man. You make it really difficult for other people to see that, but I see it, and I suspect she, Sarah, had something to do with that. Aw. And there you have it. That is the finale of season 2. We are halfway through the rewatch. Can you believe it, folks? I'm very excited to get into season 3. There's a lot of cool stuff coming our way that I am looking forward to digging into. And so go out there and watch Halt and Catch Fire. Until next time.